Hey, welcome back to my series Worth 1000 Words, where I write a 1000 word short story based on a piece of artwork. If you're new here, my name is Jason and I'm a fiction writer. And today we hit episode 16. And I'm not sure why I didn't think of this before, but it is the month of October. Horror is one of my favorite genres, and yet somehow I let the opportunity pass me by. But luckily for me, October is not over yet, so I still have the opportunity to dive into the horror genre a little bit more. So today will be the first of those, and I may or may not do an episode next week, and I will tell you why. It's not because I'm giving up. NaNoWriMo is starting November 1st, and if you don't know what that is National Novel Writing Month, and it is where you attempt to write a 50,000 word first draft of a novel in 30 days. And I thought I'd give myself about a week to prepare for this, like come up with some ideas, maybe create a rough outline. And I wanted to do that the week before November, which is next week. So if I do have time to slip a short story in there, I will. But otherwise, I will pick that back up after November. But the good news is I will be live streaming every day this process. So please, if you're into writing or storytelling, or you just want to hang out and talk about stuff, please join me. I'll probably try to stream on YouTube and Twitch. I guess I'm going to try this software called Restream that allows you to multi-stream. Because I have a very small audience at the moment, I don't think I really have anything to lose, or I'm not alienating them in any way. So we'll see how it goes. And then after I stream my outlining process, I'm going to stream all of NaNoWriMo every day, hopefully every day. I know there's a holiday in there, there's Thanksgiving. So what I'm going to try to do is get my word count high enough to where I can maybe take a day or two off. We'll see how that goes. I'm not sure quite yet how smoothly the experience. I've done it once before, and ironically enough, it's the only novel I've published, and I did find it a good experience. A lot of people think that it is sort of a weird form of motivation, but I got into it, and just knowing that that word count had to be hit every day, it forced me to finish it. Now, when I finished the first draft, it was garbage and I had to do a lot of rework, but that's the point, just to have something that you can mold into something good. So I do have an idea for a story. It's been kind of on the back burner for a while. I do create a document of story ideas, and I feel like this one might fit. It's not part of a series. Well, it is part of a series, but more like an anthology, I should say, where the world is related, but the actual stories within those novels aren't. So I'll be going over that, why I chose it, what it's about, and I have very little in my head about how this thing resolves and all the characters and all the details. I just know how it starts, the concept behind it, the themes behind it, and hopefully how it ends. We'll see. All right, now with that out of the way, this artwork, it was suggested to me. At least this was one of a few that was suggested. This is the one I chose, so thank you who suggested it. You know who you are. I'm looking forward to it. I immediately got Lovecraft vibes from the artwork, and if you know me, I'm a huge Lovecraft fan, so while that is an intriguing prospect, it is also a daunting one, because can I do justice to the man's work? Not that it's going to be a complete carbon copy or anything like that, or even deal with any of his mythos, but I think what I want to do is capture the tone, and I think when you see the image, you'll know what I'm talking about. But before we get onto the artwork, let's talk about the music I'm going to listen to. It's an album called Peripetia, and it's by a longtime favorite of mine, Raphael Anton Irisari. I've listened to him for years. He started out kind of more melodic. He is an ambient artist, and I feel like his later stuff is a little bit more droney, a little bit more ambient, a little darker even. And so I thought it would be a great accompaniment to this artwork. All right, enough of the intro. I know we want to get onto the artwork, so let's do that right now. Let's check out today's artwork. Today's artwork is titled 80.5 degrees south, 94 degrees west. And it's part of a series called Hell of a Story by a concept artist illustrator out of Santa Monica, California, named Alex Konstad. And this one, as I said, was requested, one of a few, and I chose this one. Even though, as much as I was drawn to it, I knew it was going to be difficult. It has a very Lovecraftian tone to it, which is probably why I decided to pick it. I mean, we have this tiny, well, we have a regular size submarine looking very small on the bottom part of the image. And just out of the darkness are these massive hands. 6 fingers. Well, assuming there is a thumb there. And I really love this. I know it's an older piece. It was posted on ArtStation about 5 years ago. There's a bit of a story to it. It's just a couple lines really. And I want to say it didn't really influence me. I was thinking about, perspective, right? I had a couple of ideas came to mind immediately, and they all had to do with POV. So rather than spoiling it here, I'll let you see what I came up with. This one, as much as I like it, is going to be a tough one. Dream, someone said. From inside, from outside, from everywhere. It comforted me like nothing else. Like the stars, infinite, blinking at me with uncountable eyes, watching. This dream, this soundscape of which was a deafening silence, one that held me somewhere between consciousness and unconsciousness. The crew slept soundly, comfortably, as if they were wrapped in the arms of their lovers, tucked beneath the pleasant furnace of woolen layers. My eyes, though closed, ventured the halls, the cramped spaces, feeling their heartbeats, quiet but alive, oh, so alive. They beat to a number. 6 was that number. I am no musician, yet this tempo I could feel in all of its beautiful simplicity. After 6 beats, an even more painful silence would fill that void. Despite my discomfort, I remained still during those moments. I moved only when the beats allowed me to, throttling me along a path I did not choose. Dreamscapes. I like that word. And it was where I found myself. I could feel my bare feet on the icy floor, every damp patch sending a spear through my spine. I could feel my hands, tracing the bunks as I passed, chapped fingertips snagging on every loose blanket. I wished to speak to them, the crew. My mouth I could not feel. I had no control over it. So, in those beats of 6, I walked, eyes screaming, "Wake up, wake up, wake up." The hall was long, but the end was coming. A fog of light filled the chamber before me. I waded through it. Portholes lined the space to my sides. My arms reached for them, as if they were rings I could hold on to stop myself from going further to a place I did not want to go. Though the sleeping crew had left me, I could still feel their hearts beating faster, which forced me to move on. The literal weight of the world pressed around me. Although I was encased in feet upon feet of airtight steel, it threatened to crush me. As the space opened, no soul left for company, that pressure intensified. That was a lie. I did have company. I felt someone, perhaps a sea creature as lonely as me, searching the infinite dark for another soul. My fear subsided because I felt a peace overcome me. The feeling of walking through that familiar door with a drooping frame, opening a fissure where ivy burrowed, where an empty but warm room opened its arms, much like the lovers of the crew, to welcome me with a plush seat beside a hearth. And a window. A window that was oddly circular, too small to be of much use. You'd have to get too close to peer out, and what a pity to whomever decided to put it here, because the view was majestic. The night sky mirrored off a placid lake, surrounded by trees, except for this view, this single spot, with a frustratingly small window. I moved out of that seat, as cozy as it was, and walked to the strip of moonlight the fire couldn't reach, pressing my face to the window. Harder, harder, my nose flattening, a drop of blood oozing onto my upper lip, finding the groove between my teeth where it seeped through. The taste of it invigorated me, and closer to the glass I went, if that was even possible, my teeth now clacking against it, my breath fogging it, revealing patterns, so many patterns. I didn't want to look at the beauty of the night any longer. These patterns, only visible when my hot breath revealed them, became an obsession. I breathed harder, with a purpose, with a tempo I remembered from somewhere far away, long ago. I followed their voices, those symbols. Somehow I both understood and did not. They steered me. My body was a vessel, one that I opened to them, those voices. 6, I once thought. But now that I was closer, almost one with them, they were 6 and 6. 12. Of what significance that number held, I did not know, nor cared to. All I wanted was to bask in its presence. It or them. Singular, plural. Those concepts had no meaning here. This was something beyond mere labels. The window filled my view, no longer a small circular portal. Its game was over. It teased me no longer. Now it gave me everything. It gave me the world, the sky, the stars beyond that sky, into a place that felt like home. Not the place of rotting frames where ivy crawled, nor of chairs by fires. Something deeper, reaching beyond the physical. And I gave in with all my being. Grab him! My God. Don't just stand there. Do something. Impossible. Impossible. Home was stripped away from me amid the guttural screams and moaning of things that crawled on their bellies in filth, earthbound. Eat and shit and fuck. Eat and shit and fuck. Her, I said, singular in this world perhaps. It was the best I could do with my simple biology. So disgustingly simple. As they pulled me away from the window, she is what I saw. Hand over hand, 6 fingers painted in cones of light, ending in nails sharpened by the sea, the darkness, the stars. A mere representation of the complex beauty that she truly was, manifested in this form to allow me to see. Arms entangled me, though I wanted hers. Fists pummeled me, bloodied me into a place far from her. How I yearned to slip through the gaps between those fingers, wide enough just for me, just for me. Crack. And I look at my pencil, calculate how much I have left with my chipped nails. 6 millimeters exactly, and I laugh, a deep laugh, deeper than the trench where she waits. I cry. I sit beneath the window, square, not circular, fashioned with bars, the stars watching, a stem of ivy dangling, just out of reach. So I think the first thing that becomes very apparent here is that there are no words on the screen. And as I did mention when I was talking about the artwork, I was a little bit intimidated, let's say, by this piece. Now, it could be my love of Lovecraft, because that really is what this image said to me. And I was contemplating these 2 different POVs, meaning someone who is either in this submarine, or my other idea was this creature or this being of some kind that we see just the hands of. And I decided to go with someone in the sub. And you can see I'm struggling here already with how to start it, where it's going to go. And the funny thing is I changed this opening paragraph quite a bit toward the end. I was never really happy with it. I think it was just to get my fingers going and hopefully that my subconscious would start taking over. And immediately you can see that I go over to first person, deciding that whoever this person is, I'm telling the story from their perspective, that it's going to be definitely in their mind, not any omniscience of any kind. And I really don't ever write that way. I can't stand omniscient writing, to be honest with you. I feel like all the power in fiction comes from getting close to the character. And I've established here that there is a sleeping crew. So whoever this person is in this dreamscape, this dream that they find themselves in anyway, is walking through these halls, or at least metaphorically, in their dreams, I suppose. And finally, I decide to bring the number 6. So I did notice that there were an odd number of fingers here in this illustration. So we have 5 fingers shown, and presumably there is a thumb. So I wanted to use that number as some kind of significance, as this sleeping god, so to speak, is that element is being used for some kind of symbolism. And at this point, I really have no idea where I'm going. I have this character who is traveling through this submarine among the sleeping crew, but where this person's going and what's going to happen, I have no idea. And I remember while I was writing this, I really wasn't having a good time. I wasn't normally when I see an image, or at least after the first few minutes, I can kind of get somewhat of a sense of where I'm going to go, or maybe where it ends up, or even sometimes when I start, I spend a few minutes looking at the artwork and just noting all the details and thinking about how it's going to end, because it's always important to know how you're going to end. Otherwise, you don't know where anything's going to go. Like, even if you have no outline, as I do here, I don't outline any of this stuff, as you know. I try to think of where will this thing end up before anything, before even the first line. I want to know where it's going to go. So I have this character traveling down this hall, and I'm just kind of killing time, essentially. I don't know where it's happening. I just noticed the lights of the submarine, and I'm talking about a fog of light here that's filling the chamber. So I'm assuming that this character is moving to the forefront of the submarine, which I guess that's where the light's coming from. So that's what I was doing. And then right about here, or actually I think it's the next paragraph, is when things start coming together a little bit. Anyway, I get into a bit of a flow, let's say, and I signify that something is happening by the hearts of the crew beating faster, but that in essence is pulling this character forward. And I wanted to convey here the depth at which they are, which I could assume is very, very deep. So I wanted to have just this character feeling the pressure around them, even though they are contained within this submarine. And this is where I decide that this character is feeling the presence of something or someone. So he's heeding the call. I'm keeping an eye on the word count down below, which is nearing 400. So I'm getting to that halfway point. But right here is where I believe that this is the midpoint-ish, or around there, I should say, where I'm taking this character back somewhere that feels like home, that there's a comfort. So what I did is, my fear subsided because I felt a peace overcome me. And then we're kind of establishing this homey or home-like scenario that is this character is imagining or even experiencing in this dream state. And so I think right here I wanted to add these little tiny details just to give it some color. Like there's a familiar door with a drooping frame that opens up a fissure where ivy burrowed. Ivy coming in from the outside into the inside. Just these small details I think you notice about your houses or wherever you live, your apartment, where it makes it unique to you and not just like any other house. And so that's what I was trying to do. And I was a little generic here with a plush seat beside the hearth and the window, but what can you do? So here is where I start to blend the line, I should say, of a window that was oddly circular, too small to be of much use. So that is like the porthole in the submarine, if you didn't catch that. And it's affording this person a beautiful view, but it's frustrating because it's so small, and just that makes everything difficult to see. And so that forces our protagonist, our character, out of his seat, and he's deciding to walk over, and it gets a little visceral here. It gets a little, I guess, I don't know, violent. There's just more action where he presses his face to the window harder, his nose flattening, a drop of blood oozing onto my upper lip. And I think this is where I decided to channel my Lovecraft knowledge, or at least the tone that I get out of Lovecraft is that someone is just compelled completely to be drawn toward this thing, whatever it may be. And I thought adding blood in the mouth really helped there. And we talk about the taste invigorating this person. And then I established the familiar Lovecraftian patterns, these weird archaic symbols that are captivating and just completely hypnotizing this person, and drawing them further into whatever it's going to be. And I had this vision in my head where the hot breath on the window was revealing these over and over, kind of when you trace your finger on a window and then you breathe on it, and that's the only time you can see it. And now we are back to a degree in the submarine. And I establish here that there are two hands to this character. So not 6, but 6 and 6, meaning 12 total. Because it looks like there are two hands in this image here. And I'm going back because I'm trying to see, like, what can I see it in, right? Is there anything from that first paragraph that I can use later on? Because I think it's really important to not leave words behind. And what I mean by that is have a lot of intention with what you're writing, and make sure to call it back. Make sure it feels like a logical progression, right? I mean, none of these, it should feel so cohesive, like it's wrapped up in a bow, that you want your reader to think that everything means something, nothing is irrelevant. And I think what really shows that the most, at least to me, is when you bring, and it's not the literal, it's the subtext, right? You bring that and you pepper it throughout the story. And so here you can see I was talking about home. I wanted to bring it back to home because the first line is, dreams are home. And this is when I decide I'm at 800 words. I need to snap him out of this and bring some realism to it. And I decided to throw all these voices at him. So presumably this is the crew witnessing what is happening. This massive creature outside the portholes of the sub. And this is the moment. I feel like this is kind of Lovecraftian in a way too, where the character feels the insignificance of who they are and what they're around them. They have a revelation of really what humanity is in comparison to this being. Whether or not that's true, it doesn't matter. I think it's just a mindset, right? It's this character that has evolved through natural selection, so they view themselves as lowly, where this great creature that is slumbering beneath the sea is just much more advanced and much more ancient. And so that's why I'm saying here, the best he could do with his simple biology, so disgustingly simple. I wanted to really hammer that in because I think that's a very common theme in Lovecraft, is that humanity is an accident. They're just a bunch of apes essentially, or insects compared to these beings, and that's what I was trying to do. And this is where I describe the creature. I didn't want to make it too long. I just thought that, enough to suggest, because I think that the one thing Lovecraft always did right, I believe, is he understood what dread and what creeping horror was, and that, you don't want to reveal every detail. You want to leave something up to the animation or the imagination. Here is where I bring us to the present. So everything was in past tense. It was in first person. So I assumed it was, as in Lovecraft fashion, a journal entry of some kind. And so we discover here that our protagonist is somewhere else, possibly in a mental asylum or something, because that's where everyone in a Lovecraft story ends up. Yeah, I sit beneath the window, square, not circular. I think I said fashioned with bars. Yeah. So they're in some kind of prison of some kind. And here I bring the ivy dangling, so just out of reach, signifying that we did establish that that was part of his home and that comforted him. And I wanted to bring that imagery to the end. And you can see here I'm completely gutting the first paragraph. I'm creating some kind of vocalization here. It's not in quotes, so it's internal or it's at least different. And I think that's a good way to signify change, right? I mean, I could have had it in quotes, but then it might have signified an actual voice, and I didn't want it to be that. So normally italics demonstrate first person inner thought, but here I use them differently. Like in the wake up, wake up, wake up. That is in his head directly. So you can see that I'm almost to 1,000, and I believe I go to about an hour 6 total. And luckily, the story shaped up midway, and I was happy with that because I I wasn't very confident when I began, and I think that's one lesson to be learned is just start typing, just start writing in a notebook, however you want to do it, but know that your brain will help you out, and pretty soon you'll have more story than you anticipated. And so yeah, the typical editing session here, just trying to fill things out, clean it up, make it coherent, bring some callbacks in. Still not super happy with the first paragraph, but it is what it is. And I noticed I used endless and infinite quite a bit, so I think I was removing that. I have a little bit more than I would have liked, but I guess in these short exercises, I shouldn't be as concerned with overusing words as I am in normal longer form stuff. But I do my best. I try to minimize it as best I can, because I don't touch this once I'm done. It's done until I decide to publish it, if I ever do. Then I can go with a deep dive and fix it up. So I'm trying to fill out words here. I knew toward the end I had some opportunity. Not a lot, but and here I counterbalance the laughing with crying to show that he is not quite of a sound mind. Trying to finish that last sentence. Well, thankfully that didn't end in a complete disaster. I was really worried, as I said in the narration, about making this go somewhere interesting. And point of view really was the thing that I was struggling with. So, as I said, I was thinking about 2 points of view. One being a character in the submarine, which I felt was a little too on the nose, but that's the way I went. I felt like going the other way might not be creepy in any sort of way. Because if you're from the perspective of this creature, this being, whatever it may be, it might have been interesting from a writing standpoint or like a character study standpoint. But I think when you're in the head of the villain, especially if that villain isn't necessarily evil, in those few first minutes I was really going back and forth about whose perspective I was going to write. And that's why I deleted it. That's why I went back and changed it in the beginning. And that's why it was very, very independent, really, from anything that was in the story. I mean, it was almost like anyone could have said that. It could have been the creature or this god or goddess, whatever it may be, or it could be from the man who we saw in the story. So this was really the first time I got hung up and the POV wasn't immediately apparent to me. But I'm glad I worked through it. I'm glad it finally worked itself out, and I'm moderately happy with it. I think it's a satisfactory story. Do I think it's really creepy in any sort of way? No, not really. I didn't really feel like I had enough time to build up the dread. Or I shouldn't say I didn't have enough time. I feel like if I would have taken the story in a different direction and really turned it into this micro tale, a very small scene, smaller than what it actually is even now, maybe I could have pulled some of that dread out. And I think with Lovecraft's work, it's all about dread. It's that looming thing that's just on the periphery that you can't quite see, but you can feel it. You know it's there. And while I don't think I achieved that here, I feel like there are some elements that I'm happy with in terms of how Lovecraftian it was, such as the guy's descent into madness and how there was this moment of clarity or comfort that he had when this creature was speaking to him and luring him to do something. Now, I don't know. I kind of assume that he was steering this submarine into its hands, but was that even necessary? I mean, this thing's giant. Like this submarine is an insect compared to it. So that really isn't a very powerful conclusion. So while the crew did survive because our narrator survived, I think he's not quite who he used to be. He's a broken man now. He's imprisoned. He's crazy. And that is really the spirit of a Lovecraft tale. Not everyone has to die. They just have to go completely crazy. Now, the one thing I think I did learn from this experience, and I hopefully can pass this on to you, and if you feel like you're stuck in a story and it's going nowhere, just put words on the page. Like I said, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't even know the damn POV when I started the story. But as I began to type, and once I did choose a direction and started to just say, screw it, I'm going straight down that path, the story revealed itself to me. And I know that sounds cheesy, but for me, writing creates the story, right? It kind of awakens your subconscious to just put on paper what is already there, right? One thing leads to another. And for me, the line by line writing, being in the head of the character really moves me forward. And I think that's probably why my latest book has been selling so much, is I've been outlining the hell out of it. And I'm not very far. I'm maybe 5 or so chapters into it. And so once again, this is why I want to try NaNoWriMo again. I don't want to give myself a whole month to outline a novel. I want to give myself a week, and that's it. Just give me enough detail and force me into a very short period of time to create a sketch of an idea of where I want to go. And then hopefully with that, and then writing every day and just forcing myself to sit down, the story will come. And because I used this method to write my first novel, I'm hoping I'll have similar success here. And really, if I do, I feel like it's a method I should continue and continue and continue because it works. I was a much less busy person back then when I wrote it the first time, so hopefully it works out. And then with the added element of streaming this live, hopefully those don't provide roadblocks for me. We will only see. Let's just say the planning sessions will be a test run to see how the full 30 days of the actual writing begins. So for those of you who watch my reviews, I'm sorry, those will also be put on hold for 30 days while I do this. I finished the novel Piranesi by Susanna Clarke that I'd like to get out before this happens. Hopefully I can do that so I don't forget everything. And there's a couple of films I watched that would be great to do as well, but I think those will probably have to wait until after November. So those of you who enjoy the writing, I think this will be an interesting experience. I hope you tune into the streams. I don't think it's going to be the same time every day. I'm in the Pacific Standard Time Zone, but what I'm thinking going to do is figure out the day before what time I'm going to stream and then set that as a premiere on YouTube, just so people will know what time it is. So I'm not just going to like spring it on everybody. But anyway, all that stuff will be recorded. I'm going to leave it on YouTube completely unedited and how it is. If you're doing NaNoWriMo, just come hang out right along with me. I mean, my good friend who did complete NaNoWriMo when I wrote my novel, who decides he just doesn't want to write anymore. It was fun. I mean, we were kind of motivating each other and it was a good time. So anyway, enough of that. I'm going to try to get one more short story in before I call it quits. Not quits, while I pause it, for about 30 days. And I hope you join me. I hope you enjoy it. I hope maybe it motivates you. And if I don't see you in this video next Wednesday, I will definitely see you Monday when I start the NaNoWriMo prep stream. So keep an eye out, turn the notification bell on if you're subscribed, and as always, keep reading, keep writing, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye. If you'd like to read this story in its non-video format, check the link in the description. I didn't add anything else, promise. Thanks again.